Alright, MA Marignon, turn 69. I'm pretty sure all the turns from here on out are going to be pretty busy, so let's jump into it. We finished research in Conjuration 7, mostly for diversity stuff. Now we're on to blood magic. We're really mostly interested in vampires, but we are starting to get enough blood mages that, a few more options of spells for them to cast would be nice. But yeah, mostly we're looking for that 7, so not too worried about these lower levels of blood magic. Doing our spying, bringing a golem in, we're going to give him that artifact that lets you cast Lesser Horror, because it does horror mark whoever holds it, and I believe it's cursed, so you can't take it off. So figured probably worth giving that to a golem. So that will be another useful spell in our toolkit. Using our wolf cannon, of course, bringing in a lich, bringing in more skeletons. Gift of Reason, right, I forgot. We're Gift of Reasoning that other flagrant tyrant. Shifting our pretender around, we got mind hunted by someone. This is probably Asphodel, but could also be Ariu. And yeah, I talked about how we were planning on using mind hunt against our opponents, and how Asphodel's not really in astral power, which they are not. Yeah, this is in Asphodel's territory. But like I said, they're large enough and it's late enough that there you go. They have enough astral magic. They have at least astral 4, but we at least survived it. Werewolves do not have great magic resistance by default, so we will either have to start providing them with magic resistance gear, which is going to increase their cost, reduce their efficiency, or we're just going to have to accept some losses. So these guys are more heavily kitted, so it'd be a bit painful to lose them that way. But at the same time, I don't know if we want to send them home to pick up amulets of anti-magic. And I believe this is our wolf attack. So, we'll see. Ooh, okay, we ran into an army here. I was not expecting that. And it looks like a bit of a province defense dump, which was not here last turn. But of course, you never know how much is going to be committed to province defense. And yeah, this one's not going to work out for us. Yeah, we've talked about how this spell is not great at taking enemy provinces. Maybe should still be putting these in our own territory, but we were hoping that we could pick this province up. And we did at least see that there is an elf force moving to attack us. So this is useful scouting information that we probably wouldn't have had otherwise, unless the swordsmen were being moved in. But even then, right, if we just saw a group of swordsmen, it's well, is there also a group of sacreds here? How many mages are with it, right? Because they have glamour, so there's no way to know. So now at least we know. So silver lining, we do some site searching, none of which works out. Ariu brings in a prophet. We try to assassinate, but it looks like whoever he was trying to assassinate stealthed away. I'm not actually sure where that is, to be honest. And then, yeah, there's a lot of battles. We are in the normal phase now, I believe, so that means that we did not get mono-dropped, I think, which is probably a good thing. Okay, right, I forgot, Shiniyama has quite a few Wraith Lords. Unkitted, which, makes sense because they are invulnerable, so this way they risk basically nothing. Soulslay is a thing we can do, and Mind Hunting also counts as a Soulslay attack. Magic Resistance 16, it's not easy, but with penetration gear, we can definitely mind hunt and soul slay these units. So that's definitely what we're going to want to do. Otherwise, we're going to keep seeing these Wraith Lords over and over again. This was the province where we didn't really put any defense, so, Skelly spam works out. We also don't really lose anything, and then I believe this is our main army jumping on top of fort. Flagra has patrolled sometimes, but no, it looks like in this case they just want to sit inside, make it as painful as possible to take the fort. And, fair enough. This is our army that's dying of disease, so we do kind of need to use up at least the troops, although we want to be careful not to lose the mages if we can, because there's a decent amount of gear investment in here, but we'll definitely be able to take out this province defense. Do manage to bleed out a few units, but, it is what it is. And then Agartha, looks like they are taking this province from the villains. Wow, okay, they're moving out with everything. Probably worried about getting, Cloud Trapezed onto. So yeah, this is interesting stuff. We don't need to necessarily analyze this army. We've seen an army similar to it fight before. I don't know if this is the same one or if they've managed to build another one. But yeah, Agartha is not out of this game, not by a long shot. They're not in a good position, having lost a lot of territory and struggling to raid and counter-raid against the elves, which is understandable, but now that the elves are going to be somewhat busy with us, it is possible for Agartha to make a resurgence, which is kind of good for us, but we do need to make sure that, right, Agartha might be interested in that throne from Shiniyama. We can't really have that. And then it looks like we get raided by Falegra, so yeah, they're clearly not completely checked out of this game, and yeah, this looks like a perfectly competent raid. Do we have anything in this? No. Even though we have counter-raiding forces in a lot of provinces, we haven't quite hit 100% coverage. We also need to be careful about, putting counter-raiders in places that can get hit with an entire army, because that's just sort of a waste of counter-raiders. And then this is Asphodel taking that Almash province that's on our border. So this group is probably going to become our problem in the future, although there is a Pelagian province between this and our territory, and Alma's, left a standard amount of province defense. They might kill a few mannequins, but they're not going to be able to hold that off. Yeah, they kill one carrion beast. Yeah, I don't know. 6 PD there. I don't know. I overinvest in province defense as well sometimes. And so let's see, this is one of our raids into our own territory, trying to recapture something that Arayu took. They moved out. They only left the 1 province defense. I think a much better idea when you're in a heavy raiding and counter raiding situation. There's no point in putting the full 6 in. You just put the 1 in or put a lot in and try to catch the counter raider. So that works out for us, and that's our Grandmaster. So we didn't even spend a fire gem there. I mean, other than the fire gems that we spent, to make the jar. And then we have a raid pretty deep in our territory, but we have a Witchmaster, or Witch Hunter, who's here. Is there any fire resistance? No, he does have magic resistance gear though, right? So we've been talking about how Mind Hunt is something we can potentially use against Arayu. This fellow will be pretty challenging to Mind Hunt, but he's not going to like this Fire Elemental, not one bit. Now, if he flies to the back, nope, Fire Elemental made it. That is critical. Ooh, he manages to kill the Fire Elemental. So it looks like we might need more province defense investment, although we'll see. I don't think is this guy set to advance and cast? I think he is, but he's asleep. So he needs to wake up before this guy gets the rout on everything. Really, Phoenix Pyre, buddy? Yeah, now he's casting Phantasmal Warrior, so, okay, yeah, great. You Burning Hands his Phantasmal Warrior. Okay, so Incinerate, that was close, but it did work out for us. So that's definitely one that we could have lost, but I do think that once Arayu gets some fire resistance gear on their guys, life is going to get a lot harder for us. But the longer that stuff like this can go on, and this is sort of the first wave, right? So it's unlikely that these first fellows are ever going to get fire resistance gear, because to send them all the way back, the same problem with our first wave of werewolves, getting them magic resistance gear. It's well, is it even worth it? So I think Arayu's probably looking at this the same way. They're aware that whoops, should have put fire resistance gear on. The second wave of these guys, I would be shocked if they did not have fire resistance gear. Certainly they ought to. And then this is a place where we are attacking. I'm not actually sure where this is, but it's fire elementals, because that's mostly what we're doing here. And we're up against minimal province defense, so I do think this is going to work out. And we do take this. So yeah, it's probably used to be our territory. And then we are attacking Asphodel in a couple of places. I think this is with one of our... Nope. Right, this is all the different groups of thugs. And yeah, Asphodel just put in a little bit of province defense, going against my recommendation of not putting, or just putting 1 in or a lot in. Although this is Ko-Onis, so Ko-Onis can be pretty scary even in a cave. But yeah, they don't love evocation, right? Size 1 units, and we have plenty of stuff here. It's a much heavier raiding squad than you would really expect. So that's a lot of our raiders that only took 1 province. But it was kind of a nasty province, so we are glad that that's one place at least that they, oh no, this is cold now. When did that happen? I guess because it's going to winter. So this army could get murdered by winter. We'll see. And then, of course, yeah, there's no province defense here. We're definitely expecting that because Arayu, I think, is defending their forts with the threat of murdering winter, and we thought that we could sneak in, right, because this province wasn't cold, but now it has gone to at least cold 1, so that's pretty terrifying. It's a good chance a lot of these fellows are going to die to a cast of murdering winter next turn. We knew there was some risk to this. But we can't stay off his forts forever, right? So we do need to start taking some infrastructure off of them. Now we have a werewolf raiding against Ariu. I think this is a province with a temple in it, so a bit irresponsible to have a temple in only one province, maybe, or one province defense. Maybe they got it for free. So I do think this is going to work out for us. Of course, we do have to be careful about dark skies. Yeah, you can see our morale is fairly low, despite having a morale boosting item. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot of Dominion in here either, so you always get a penalty, right? -1 just for being in hostile Dominion. That should put us at 16, but we're at 15. The extra 1 coming from the dark skies. I think there's only 1 candle in this province, so that should work out for us. But raiding deeper into Ariu's territory will, get harder and harder and harder as our werewolf takes like 1 hit and then he's just going to run away. Although we do, right, there is a temple there, and we're happy to get rid of that because the number of candles in Ariu's provinces matters a lot, and we certainly don't want any of that leaking into our own territory. And then we catch a battle between Asphodel and Man. This, I think, is on top of the fort. Okay, so Man has left a few units, which I do kind of approve of. I think a lot of times, myself included, people just leave, like 1 unled unit on top of the fort. That can be pushed off really easily. Like, this is a squad that's not that expensive, but also, it'll definitely take out a lot of like ping type of attacks. Now, this is not a ping attack, right? This actually has a mage with some bodyguards, some spell support, right? So there's a nature gem that got used here, and quite a few centaurs. And while these landless knights are decent, you're not going to be able to take out all these. Centaurs are pretty scary, even just regular centaurs. So that does not work out for Man. But still, like, I do think that, that sort of idea is reasonable. But, Asphodel, like I've said, the player piloting them is, in my opinion, an excellent player. And then we get attacked by Shiniyama. Right, this is that force that we saw. It's got the Bakemono Sorcerer, who isn't really kitted, and he has some Earth Gems, probably for Earth Elementals? I don't know, we'll see. But speaking of Elementals, though, right, we have brought in, a couple of guys, so we're going to pop out at least 2 Fire Elementals, maybe just the 2 Fire Elementals. Probably should have, yeah, there's the Pillar of Fire. Probably should have actually combine these guys, got them closer, that way because now the fire elementals, well, I don't know, we'll see. They're both headed to the middle. We'd prefer them to fight together, but yeah, we got some fire casting. We also have some province defense here that isn't like totally awful, and then of course our bodyguards are reasonably scary. We have a ton of fire casting here. There's the earth elemental, so we're not out of the woods yet here. And yeah, there's still a lot of Bakemono. I do think we lost 1 witch hunter, so I wouldn't exactly call this one clean, and we haven't won it yet because the Bakemono sorcerer is just hanging out in the back making skeletons now. And unfortunately, I did not set these guys to advance and cast spells, so that was a mistake. But it does look like we have routed off Shiniyama's stuff. Interesting. This guy actually looks like he's a hero. I was wondering how a Bakemono archer managed to get a fire shield, so that's kind of cool. He doesn't look especially threatening, and it does look like he's going to survive, so that's unfortunate. But we do at least turn around this attack, and while it's not without loss for us, I think overall that trade is going to be okay. Yeah, the Bakemono warriors are pretty cheap, so in that sense, like, it's a bit of a good trade, even though they lose a lot of them. It's not that hard to replace them, but the Bakemonos are pretty expensive, and he loses quite a few of them. On the other hand, right, like, we do lose a Witch Hunter, not cheap, and a Knight of the Chalice. That's worth at least, 2 Bakemono, or 2 Bakemonos. But we do hold the province, and it's unlikely that, it's going to take a turn or two before this force can reconstitute and that Bakemono Sorcerer comes to bother us, so I'm going to put that one in the win column, definitely. This one probably won't go in the win column, so yeah. Asphodel raiding out. I don't think we left anything to defend here. Yeah. Doesn't look too powerful, though, so that's good news. Yeah, just being led by a Mound King. Speaking of mind hunting, that's a reasonable target to mind hunt. Also completely possible to take out with like a water bottle assassin, who we may want to start using them offensively. Yeah, and the centaur are dangerous, but not unstoppable. So we lose that province. That is in Asphodel's territory, though, so that's not too bad. This is in our territory, sure. So hopefully we have a fellow. Nope, just barbarians. Oh wait, no, we do have a fellow. Excellent. Oh, he's a little too far back. Should have been pushed farther forward, but there's a lot of there's a lot going on here. So you're not always going to perfectly position. It looks like his script was not updated. He's just spamming out body ethereal a bunch, which isn't the worst. Well, actually, it's kind of the worst thing because this guy just has a magic weapon. So I think we're going to HP route here, which is very sad. Unless the knights... He's at least on advance and cast, so that's not the end of the world. There's the fire elemental, which pretty sure he just did on his own, so good work. Does this elf... He doesn't look like... Yeah, no fire resistance. He did cast elemental fortitude, I think is where this fire resistance is coming from. Oh, wait, no, I lied. He's got fire resistance on the Bless. So, yeah. But, I mean, I think he must have cast Barkskin on himself. And that's probably why we're struggling a little bit with the fire elementals. He manages to rout off. So we hold the province. We use up a fire gem, although it's from a jar. That one's a bit of a wash, but yeah, pretty much a wash. Assuming that fellow lives, neither of us really lose anything, but we do at least hold the province. So again, putting that in the win column. Then we have Asphodel, Rating, and Svanheim. And similar, just some undead. Probably was a mage at one point. Nope, just a Revenant. So brought some Revenants in and is now using them to lead, some of their undead chaff around. And this is actually, I think it's actually 6 province defense, maybe a little bit more. Its mannequins are not great, though, so there probably will be some losses, but, that looked like it worked out pretty well for Asphodel. Yeah, they only lose, like, 4 of their free spawn. So, again, 6 province defense against, like, a heavy rating situation. Not ideal. Probably just 1 or invest heavily. And then we have Ulm attacking. And again, this is like, I don't know. Is it a raid? Is it an army? Is it a bird? It's more than a raid, less than an army. No defense against foul vapors, which seems pretty irresponsible. Let's also got an enchanted mirror to make the army look smaller than it is. But considering it's just rolling over some provinces, I feel like it's like if you're going to use an army size hiding item, probably mostly it's most beneficial when you're about to launch an attack on a neighbor, and then you just put it in the lab once you launch the attack, like obviously like everybody knows the actual size of this army. So unless you're going to be really good about sending thugs or whatever raiders ahead of your army to make sure that the army itself doesn't capture provinces, I don't really see the point of having that item on this army. So yeah, I'm not convinced about this, but it does take that province, right? And I mean, it's 100 infantry, like, they're going to be tough to deal with, except for foul vapors. So we'll see. I have faith in Asphodel to be able to destroy that. And then here we are raiding into Aryu's territory. This is actually there, as you can see, just barely see the dark sky in the background. Not a lot of province defense here, though. So this one is going to work out for us, I think. We should be summoning a fire elemental. Let's just ensure... There he is. All right, so this should work. And it does. We also take out one of those multi-heroes, which is nice. Seems to have a lot of these, but still, the more of these, like... Are these guys stealthy? Oh, wow, these guys, they're not even elves, so they're not even stealthy. So, yeah, I'm not even sure how useful these heroes are for him. But anyway, we do take them out, and more importantly, we take the province. Speaking of provinces and being taken, Asphodel is attacking us. He's just pinging with a harpy. I think this is on top of his fort. We moved like the mass protection group on top of this with all the flagellants. So this is sort of like, again, is it an army? Is it a raid? It's a little bit in between. And it also does not have foul vapors defense. So we're kind of expecting that one to get killed by foul vapors or killed by murdering winter. We probably should move some foul vapors defense in there because, here I am questioning Ulm's decisions about not having foul vapors defense, and then here I am doing the same thing. But the thought is that, we want something that is dangerous enough that it's going to start damaging the walls and forces a response, but isn't really big enough to warrant a cast of Murdering Winter. Now, of course, since we didn't provide poison defense, there's a mage inside that fort that probably can cast foul vapors. That's going to be the obvious answer, although... Right. Okay, so I'm not as dumb as I thought. That army is almost completely sacred, and we have 15 poison resistance on the Bless. So as long as our army is completely sacred, we are covered from foul vapors. I keep forgetting that. I'm not used to like the recruit anywhere sacreds where like you really can have like entire armies of sacred units. So I'm just so used to having a huge chunk of my army be like mundane troops. If you're attacking someone with foul vapors, like you have to have Serpent's Blessing for that army. Otherwise it's an easy kill. But in our case, as long as we keep everything sacred, we can avoid that fate. So I need to remember that. Build more all sacred medium commitment armies, I think, is probably the route. We do still want like some doom stacks to keep Asphodel pinned back, and if they do send like a major army out, then that's what the doom stack would be for. But in terms of actually moving into those really dangerous areas where we're probably going to get Murdering Wintered, we want to send like that kind of medium commitment group that can still deal damage to the walls, but we're not so worried about losing. Speaking of medium commitment, that's what we've got going on here. So Shiniyama put a ton of province defense in this province, which we knew about. We sent the Fire Elemental in. The Fire Elemental is going to hold guys up, and now we have 2 casters here doing fire stuff, and the crossbowmen unfortunately aren't doing as much as I would have hoped, but yeah, I think we're going to get the route here. Yeah, so this is just a wasted crossbowman. That's unfortunate. Okay, so crossbowmen, not the best raiders. We have used them successfully before, but never against that much province defense. I was thinking that between the Fire Elemental, the Fire Magic, and the crossbowmen, it would be enough. I don't think we were that far off, but that is a bit of a painful loss, especially since we knew what was in there. And Shiniyama loses nothing to this, right? Because the province defense just resets. It looks like our commanders at least managed to retreat successfully, so that's the most important thing. We should be able to hit this with a lot more force in the coming turn, because our main army, I think this is our main army moving on top of Shiniyama's fort, so we'll see how that goes. It doesn't look like Shiniyama chose to attack us there. This is another Fire Elemental raid into Aryu's territory. There's just 1 province defense here. We are happy about that. That should work out. Yep, no losses there, although I think these guys, they just have 1 fire gem. Again, we're not really planning on penetrating deep into Aryu's territory. Just put a little extra pressure on them. Try to move the fight into their territory, not in our territory, would be our preference. And then this should be our main army that is jumping. Okay, oh, it looks like Shiniyama decided to patrol. Yeah, there's no way that this is all province defense. Like, we see some mages in here. So let's take a look. Yeah, I don't know. These sorceresses, like, while they are death mages, I've talked like all game about how they'd be nice mages to get a hold of, but really just from sort of a site searching and utility standpoint, this one has spent an earth gem to get them up to earth 2, and now they're at least a reasonable earth caster. They can do a few other useful things, but they're not too scary as far as mages go. That's just a regular Zot. This is kind of scary. Maybe some quickness or something like that, or maybe one of the cold fatigue plays is not impossible. We would not love that, though luckily I think this province is relatively hot, so it won't do too much, and we should... Okay, here's Foul Vapors. Another reason that we would want to end this battle sooner rather than later, although, Shiniyama is not going to love Foul Vapors either, so unless they have someone here... No gems or kit on this Bakemono Sorcerer, but yeah, unless they have someone here that can cast poison resistance on themselves, that's going to be a bit of a problem, honestly more of a problem for them than for us. So we're going through our script, right? Mass Protection, Arrow Fend, let's see, Natural Rain. Okay, that's good. So our Fire Magic is, not going to be quite as good. And then also Howl coming up from them. That's good, because they want to extend the battle out if their plan really is to do Foul Vapors. We get a few bugs out, which is okay. Our knights go forward, we get Fog Warriors up. I don't think we have a lot of advance and cast spells in these armies. We might want to change that. So we're really just kind of relying on the knights to do the deed. And we do have Solar Eclipse up, so that's going to help a lot. Although I do think that the Bakemono, yeah, they have Dark Vision. In fact, a lot of our enemies, right? Asphodel has Spirit Sight. The Bakemono have Dark Vision. Still, we have Spirit Sight, so that's going to be better for us. They still get a slight penalty. And, this is looking pretty good. The fact that we managed to get Arrow Fend up matters a lot. Also, I think Rain might affect missiles. I know Storm does. I'm not sure if Rain does. So, this is not going to be without loss for us. But we've brought a lot more in terms of battlefield-wide buffs. And the Knights are pretty good, though the Bakemono are also good, but they don't get any advantage of a Bless, so that works out for us. Wow, better than I thought, right? And yeah, this is why Asphodel essentially has built almost no armies to oppose us. I mean, also partially because they're fighting people and we're intentionally attacking them in a location and a time where it's going to be very difficult for them to bring resources against us. But I think even if they had an opportunity to build an army to fight against us, I'm not sure that's the route they would go, because our armies are pretty scary. So instead, they've been hitting our armies with disease and, trying to wipe them out with Murdering Winter and things like that, which is going to be a much more cost-effective way of trying to kill an army like this. So I was not expecting Shiniyama to try to defend this province. I guess they wanted the benefit of their province defense, which I do agree with. I think a lot of times people abandon their Fort PD when really they should be patrolling, to get its advantage. But they didn't have enough magic support here. Obviously, Shiniyama is in a motion than us. So, a lot of this is just highlighting the difference, right, between research. Once you start to get later in the game, if you have not hit those research targets, you just can't really stand up to other people's armies, which is part of why reach is so critically important. So this one works out really well for us, especially because they chose to patrol. So now we should crack this fort more quickly, and we can get our army moving and on to other things. And I guess that those gems were not for Foul Vapors. I'm not actually sure what they were. They were probably for Howl. And Howl definitely is a really useful spell, but by itself, especially if you have bodyguards, another reason that bodyguards on is really important. Witch Hunters by themselves, it can be a little dicey, right? If a wolf sneaks through, it could kill a Grandmaster or a witch. But if they have bodyguards, much less likely. And yeah, of course. Okay, so that's why. Asphodel anticipated that we would be coming into this province, so that's unfortunate. We probably, actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I don't know why this didn't occur to me earlier, but we can cast the spell that's going to increase the temperature in provinces. So definitely I should have done that last turn. It is now too late because this occurs, you can see this occurs after pretty much everything else. So we are going to eat a Murdering Winter here in all likelihood, and it will be devastating. This is at least our smallest army, but we should start casting the spell to raise temperature in places, basically just upping the ante, right? Asphodel can continue to cast, especially for the places that are already cold, right? If we both cast it, it just cancels out and it just stays whatever temperature it was. So in places that they've already managed to get it cold, as long as they can keep up the gem expenditure, we can't really move the needle unless we get some help from a natural summer or our own dominion. But in this location where it wasn't cold, if I'd thought about this more, we could have cast the spell to cancel this out, and it would have at least neutral, would have been much better than the situation we now find ourselves in. So that's a major error on my part. Then we have some other unexpected events. One of our witch hunters was consorting with devils, which is according to the lore, if you know what happens with late age Marignon. But for this particular witch hunter, he got water magic, but then he got banished to one of the infernal realms. He will probably not survive, but we may see his struggles in the future, which is always a little interesting. Also means we probably have a gap in our defenses somewhere, so we'll have to move another witch hunter, hopefully one that is a little more pure and not filled with heresy. And then we lose some tax, of course. We do still have misfortune. Hey, some earth gems. We do need earth gems. We like that. There's a worldwide event, death match. Let's see, it's happening now. We probably won't send anyone. Someday we'll send someone to the arena, but not today. And then we witness some neutral attacks on other people's lands. So Ariu loses some lands to a brigand who's leading around a lumber construct, as well as some villains. Not a lot of province defense here. And then Asphodel got attacked by some Woodhenge Druid, some Vinemen, and they managed to take out, standard 6 province defense. So that's good news for us. Glad that, other people are facing misfortune. Then we managed to patrol out some scouts, one from Ariu we're happy to get rid of. Not sure where this is, but it looked a fort based on the number of people patrolling. And then we patrol out an Almish scout somewhere. This also looks like a fort, so that's a little interesting. And then, okay, this is actually a battle. Well, let's see. I can tell if we won or lost that. So Shiniyama trying to sneak, a pretty major, a lot of Bakemono in as raiders. And then, yeah, I guess our province defense caught it. We don't have a ton of province defense here. I guess this initiate is patrolling because he was trying to catch elves, so he's just hanging out patrolling. This is not likely to work for us because, Pillar of Fire against, one thug, that can work pretty well. Yeah, he's already taking damage from the arrow fire. But Pillar of Fire, still damaging against all these raiders. There he goes. Although, yeah, armies of Marignon are routed. We do at least rout some of the Bakemono. Are they going to get off before our guys? No. So it looks like Shiniyama doesn't lose too much. So yeah, we do lose that province. We kill some of the Bakemono, but we do at least know that this is happening, and we can move to try to block that. And then we catch we catch more raiders. Okay, retreat. So I guess maybe for the patrolling, I should just click through so I don't spoil it. I'm used to only catching scouts. So this is also our fort, and it looks like Airyu did choose to sneak onto it, although I don't think this is the fort I was expecting them to sneak onto. And then here we have a bunch of Pillar of Fire. There's fire resistance on the Blessed, though, and since there's going to be no, Bark Skin being cast, because there's not enough magic support here for the Bark Skin, well, he tries to get a little bit on. The guy's like, no, please don't put Bark Skin on me. So anyway, our Pillar of Fire is not going to be as effective, but 10 fire resistance, as you can see, not nearly enough. Ooh, we also have some fire elementals. Yeah, this is definitely one of our forts. Don't know which one. But yeah, like I said, we're pretty much patrolling everywhere. This is an attack rear, which is dangerous, right? So like, yeah, we do lose some mages here. We also spend a good amount of fire gems. So yeah, we're not out of the woods yet because there's still a thug. Okay, we got the HP route. So yeah, this is not without cost for us. But overall, we mostly lose province defense. And Airyu loses a ton of their sacreds. These guys are cap only, right? We've checked that. I'm going to have to check that again, because I feel like the way that Airyu is using them is like very aggressive. And I don't think these guys are easily replaced. So if these guys are cap only, this is very, very painful. For our part, I mean, we do lose a witch hunter. That hurts. These guys are expensive. Like the initiates, 2 initiates. We do have some retreats. Yeah, it's just one of the bodyguards. He survives, kind of irrelevant. So yeah, we knew that we were going to be facing a lot of stealthy enemies, but we have fought elves before, so we have some idea of what to do there at least. Speaking of fighting elves, we finished Palisades in 2 locations. That's another way that you can make life more difficult for people who like to raid. Just put forts everywhere. And so we're going to continue trying to construct forts in places as much as we can. We've almost cracked the walls on this Phlegron fort. So that's good, especially since, although Airyu is not too far off from this, but we border Asphodel, so we're a little bit concerned that Asphodel is going to start messing with that army. And then we managed to breach. This is where we're going to get murdered by winter. So we've at least breached the fort. We'll probably just storm. Like, there's no point in trying to escape because it's going to be magic phase, so it's going to happen first. So we might as well try to storm. I don't think Asphodel has much in here, so hopefully the remnants will be able to take the fort. I think they probably will. We'll see. This is the other location, right, where we moved in the force, and you can see moderately damaged. So if this gets Murdering Wintered, that's okay. It's kind of expected. But if it doesn't get Murdering Wintered, then we'll break down the walls and we'll be able to send in the flagellants, and they might be able to carry the day. So that one's a little bit better. So, kind of a good news, bad news situation. And then we have severely damaged the walls. This is our main army on top of Shiniyama's fort, so maybe there's more in here than I thought, although I do think this is a castle, so it has a bit more wall strength than a lot of other things. And then we have a little bit of patrolling, and then I completely forgot there was a bunch of mercenaries available, so we just put in minimum bids on like everybody that had troops, and it looks like nobody else was interested in the mercenaries, so we recruited these down near Shiniyama. So these guys are... Well, the idea was they were going to reinforce that crossbow raiding group that failed. Now they will just do what the crossbowmen were unable to do. Also, especially since our army is locking down that Shiniyama fort that was kind of holding some of our other units in place, we should have a fairly large army that we can start to send down towards that throne as quickly as possible, and maybe use our main army against Shiniyama's capital. So anyway, I will catch you guys after the jump. All right. This is the situation and some of what we're doing about it. Let's go ahead and start in the north here. We are still sitting on top of this Phlegron fort, or maybe we just started sitting on top of it. We have not cracked it. This is the army that's diseased, so we'll see. This is a little scary. Obviously, Phlegra has a ton of stuff next door, and while our magic is much stronger, right? We've seen, this particular army and these types of armies go up against quite a bit of Phlegron stuff and come out on top without too much trouble. This is more stuff than we've ever faced, and this army is weakened because the diseased units will start to rack up afflictions, so they won't fight as well. They'll have less hit points. So this is a bit dangerous, but this is kind of a use it or lose it situation for this army since everyone is dying of disease. Also, I think Phlegra's staled at least 1, maybe 2 turns, so they're clearly somewhat checked out. I think they're probably just interested in defending their capital for a last stand. We'll see. I'm not sure that we'll be the ones to deliver that for them. Then we are also raiding some of their territory with our first Lich. No gear on this guy, just horde of skeletons, spam, all that good stuff. And then we're continuing to raid Shiniyama. Shiniyama we're planning on pressing fairly hard, like I said, because we do want to try to secure this throne and this other throne that they have. So we're going to push forward with one of our commanders, really just like some knights. There used to be more mages here, so the knights were bodyguards for them, but they died turning back that other raiding group. So we're just going to send the survivors forward. It should be a decent raiding party. No fire elementals in that group, but 8 knights is certainly enough to overwhelm most province defense, though this is where the Bakemono sorcerer ended up, so we'll see if Shiniyama tries to make a defense here. If they do, we should be able to push that defense back with this army down here. So yeah, this is what took Nazca. It's still pretty reduced, right? There's not that many knights left in this army. And also there's currently no gems with the army, but they are meeting up with a gem carrier. So this turn it'll be a little scary since there is a Wraith Lord here. But we do have, some of our Astral Fellows here, so good amount of Soul Slay, a few Paladins with great swords. We should be able to handle that Wraith Lord if we bump into him, or, possibly he'll jump on top of this fort. We do have, the Fire Elemental Patrol going, so that might be enough to turn around the Wraith Lord, but maybe should have actually put more patrolling here. I was thinking that, you couldn't cross this river, but I believe the undead shouldn't have any trouble with rivers since they can actually go underwater. The Xibalba situation is about to tick down. I think we have one more turn of peace, and then it'll be war, or the non-aggression pact will be over, but war. So we don't really have any concrete plans for that, other than I think we are shifting maybe a lot of our skeletons. No, none of our skeletons. We are planning on shifting our skeletons up to this fortification. Figure we might as well use them. Like, we are planning on using them against Yis eventually, assuming Yis attacks us, and or assuming that this is the last throne that we end up wanting. But that's a ways off, and just having the skeletons sit around and do nothing feels kind of wasteful. So we are bringing another Lich in over here, so we'll probably send that Lich down to command these undead. We still don't have an abundance of death mages. So we will be shifting at least some of those skeletons out. I think we are shifting some mages out. We'll probably actually want to move these knights up as well, while we don't want to completely strip Mictlan, because again, Yis they still actually have not put, Pelagia under siege. So Pelagia still has a few holdings left, but this holding is under siege, and then after that we'll see where that goes. Probably should reach out to Pelagia and ask if we retake this province back, because I don't think they're really going to be able to make any use of it anymore. And we would prefer not to have Yis, gain a foothold in here, but it's really not that big a deal since they're already going to have all this underwater area. So, I don't know, it's kind of like whatever. In some ways, it provides a sort of buffer against Asphodel, although it would not surprise me in the slightest if Asphodel just attacked through this, right? Because they can sit Pelagia's on their way out, and, why would they just let this flag prevent them from threatening Bandar Log, which doesn't have a ton in the way of defenses, right? We pretty much just have chaff, like a few halberdiers here, but we have hopefully enough mages, and we can always teleport and or possibly gateway some units over if it comes to that. But anyway, as far as the Xibalba situation goes, we are kind of building up some forces here. We have a decent number of mages. We're starting to pick up a good amount of troops here, so this will probably form the main component of getting rid of Xibalba. Although we are also, trying to recruit a good amount of troops here in Old Man Mountains, where we have the steel ovens, since, we are planning on stacking up a lot of mages here. Depending on how the war goes, on how our other wars go, right, what Phlegra does, we might strip some of these troops to attack Xibalba's holdings. We don't really have much going on here. In fact, we're not even doing any recruitment. This is probably a bit of a mistake. Probably should have cut mages or something somewhere else, because we would like to recruit as much as possible up here. Since this is a throne, we're going to need it to win, and we don't really have much of a presence here. We can see that Ulm has moved, one of their heavy raiding groups or small armies next door. So possibly they're thinking about, trying to take this from us, but I don't think they can move through this mountain pass since there's no heat scales here yet. And I don't know, well, we don't know what the heat scales here are in this province, but you need heat scales on both sides. So we'll see. I mean, obviously there's a fort of theirs that's under siege here. There's a lot of things, almost very busy right now with Asphodel, so not expecting them to attack, but this is still a, big stack on our border. So worth keeping an eye on and thinking about. I think that covers the majority, of our northern efforts and kind of roughly what we're planning against Xibalba. As you can tell, it's a very detailed and well-formed plan. And then on the Ariu front, I do think we have, we're just going to try like a little bit of, Skelly spam, some really weak Skelly spam here from these Camazots. This province is pretty lightly defended, so there's a decent chance we'll be able to take it from them. I don't think we have some Bakemono attacking here. Again, pretty weakly held. So this is really, just to keep Ariu busy. And, if anything, like we'd be happy if Agartha, took this land back. We do need to start creating a corridor towards this throne. But again, we're hoping that Ariu will get back from Agartha, so we don't have to generate a diplomatic incident. But even if Ariu doesn't take it back from Agartha, we should probably push on Ashdod sooner rather than later. If we can hold Ashdod, then we'll have an easy jumping off point towards this throne. We are trying to move some friars in. Let's see, we have a friar here, and then we're moving a friar up from here, and then I think we're recruiting some friars in this fort. So we're going to try to, gather up a decent number of friars to make an effort at preaching, probably like this province, and then also Ashdod, just so that Dark Skies isn't as nasty. We could try to dispel it, but it's actually only 50 air gems to put up, and so it's, not that expensive of a global. Marignon or Ariu could put it up again, I think, without too much difficulty. That is fewer air elementals that we'll have to see, so that would be nice. But at the same time, we have plenty of other things we want to do with our Astral Pearls anyway. And overall, we're not really planning on attacking deeply into Ariu's territory. So as long as we can, the Dominion, we don't even need to completely scrub these provinces of Ariu's Dominion. We just need to lower it. It's, per candle, morale gets lowered. If our morale is lowered by, 1 or 2, that's not the end of the we do see a couple of armies coming in from Ariu, most notably this one here. We have killed a decent number of their sacreds. I'm sure they have more, so there's probably more here than meets the eye. In fact, we know that this is where our werewolf was defeated, right? So we know that there's a chunk of sacreds here. This is a slightly larger group than what it looks like. And we are expecting to face, continued pressure from Ariu on this front. But again, we're not really planning on attacking. We probably should start shifting this werewolf up because I think the werewolves are going to be easier to gear out to deal with Dark Skies. So they can maybe, widen our corridor a little bit. So we don't have the number of friars necessary, really, to preach away a lot of provinces. But we are doing recruitment. Let's see, probably a mix, of knights and flagellants here along the border. Continuing with our enchantress recruitment, of course. Although I have to say the enchantress oftentimes, all these split path ladies, they're a lot less useful in combat. So in some ways, particularly since this is also an enchantress fortress, we don't actually generate a ton of combat power locally here on this front. We have to kind of pull it in from back here. And we have plenty of forts back here to pull from, but we are trying to go south as well. So it's probably going to be a few turns before we really have a force that's at all going to be able to push against Ashdod here. The nucleus of it will, be what's in this fort here, and then also what we have in this palisade here. We're pulling most of it out, and we're shifting it over, and it'll probably join up here. Otherwise, most of the rest of this, shifting mages around and try to make sure as many provinces are covered as possible for anti-raider operations, and then trying to shift reinforcements up. And then in the south, we actually split our mercenary recruitment, so some of our mercenaries ended up over here on this front with Asphodel, so just some extra siege strength and some chaff, which is nice. because there's a decent amount of chaff that we're potentially going to have to go up against. So, and these are mercenaries, so if they get killed by Murdering Winter, it's not the end of the world. So these mercenary groups, these guys are decent, right? So some regular swordsmen. All right, cool. These guys, not great. Lobo guards, yeah, they're okay. They have some interesting traits, but they're pretty chaffy. But still, we'll take them. So we're going to move those guys in to reinforce. We have not cracked this fort yet. I don't think this group is going to eat a Murdering Winter, but we'll see. This army, though, almost definitely is going to eat a Murdering Winter. We have cracked this fort. There is actually a Well of Pestilence in here, which is very sad. Yeah, it was a good fortification choice by Asphodel. Also, the fact that it's in a forest means that, they could set up a bramble fort. So they probably use the spell, like Grow Fortification there, I think is how they get those up. So we probably should have just stormed with everything. That was just a mistake. I probably just missed that, these commanders do not show up when you're cycling idle commanders because sieging is considered an active activity. Of course, if you're sieging a fort that's already been cracked, it's kind of questionable how active you are. But I may have also been worried about the fact that, we're going to have to fight a battle against this in all likelihood. Now, I don't know. We'll see. It really depends on if Shiniyama is more interested in relieving this fortification or if they're just interested in dealing maximum damage to us. Because this army is significantly weaker than what jumped on top of their fort. So I'm pretty sure this army here can beat what Shiniyama has in this stack. But this army, it's a lot more questionable. And then depending on, how closely in communication they are with Asphodel, which think they're in close communication or really in communication at all. But if Asphodel is going to cast Murdering Winter, and it's likely they are, there's not going to be a whole lot left here. It's pretty much just going to be mop-up operations, and Shiniyama's army would easily be able to mop up what's left. So, if we were to try to assault, we're going to be assaulting with remnants. On the other hand, we're just going to continue to get diseased and maybe eat more Murdering Winters. So definitely a mistake not to storm, even though normally in this sort of situation, when you have a major army that could attack, I think storming is pretty dangerous in those conditions. So I think I just defaulted to my normal play, but in this case it was the wrong decision, I think. But we are going to try to drop our Horror Harmonica Golem on top of this Shiniyama's army. I don't think it's going to be able to stop it, but we'll hopefully at least route, some of the units off, and you never know, we might get lucky. Speaking of getting dropped on, we did not get Monolith dropped, as I was concerned about in this province, and we're fairly safe now that we're on top of this fort. Could still teleport inside the fort, in which case we'll have to deal with it when we storm. But yeah, I think it's a lot less likely now. We also have this fairly large raiding group that's moved in, but it's pretty much just Bakemono. So we have, some province defense here, and then, I don't know, what do we move? Firecaster, normal Marignon stuff. We also have some fellows patrolling this fort. Let's see, yeah, we have some fellows patrolling here as well. So if he goes in the cave, shoot. Should have moved some stuff out from Archocephaly. We have plenty of witch hunters here, so it was just an oversight. There's quite a few moves to be making, so we have a good chance of catching this raiding group. But if they move in the cave, well, we'll get them eventually. Not too worried about group of Bakemono. They are stealthy, so they could stealth out and just go somewhere. But pretty much wherever they go, they're going to meet a fire elemental, so it should work out for us in the end eventually. And then we're continuing our attack down here, especially now that this army has moved out and uncovered Tianxi. We're a lot safer to be, moving this. I hesitate to even call it an army. This pile of stuff that we have. Some of these mercenaries, I don't know. These guys, they throw stuff. It's cool. We'll give them flaming arrows. They don't shoot arrows, but whatever. Whatever they have that they're throwing, we're setting it on fire. We also have a couple of these horse-headed fellows who are okay. They're sacred, which is nice since we have a pretty solid bless. It's not really designed to help these guys specifically, but it, should help them out. They're fairly dangerous anyway. Being size 4, their attack density isn't great, but otherwise, they're decent troops. It'll work. We are going into that province that we failed a bunch of times, so, we'll see. We have a good amount of crossbowmen, fire stuff, plenty of mercenaries now. Surely we won't fail yet again. If we do fail yet again, we are moving up the majority of our troops, which is not actually all that much, but we will have reinforcements coming up for this group, and then once these raiders are done, we'll probably shift even more mages up to actually, turn this into, a more impressive pile of stuff. And I think that covers the majority of our moves. Oh, yes, this army is sidestepping, right? This is way too cold, and it'll probably get colder. So we do not, this is one of our nice armies. We don't want it to get hit with Murdering Winter. Also of note is that the spell to increase temperature is not just a fire spell. You have to be a cross fire air mage, and we don't have a ton of those. So these fellows that I was hoping for the air death cross path that they refused to give us, they at least do provide. This guy with a little bit of boosting can cast the spell to increase temperature. So we're actually moving him to the north. Can't really remember why. I guess the plan is to cast it from this direction up here. So I think he can reach. It's a fairly long range spell. So we're not going to do that yet since it's about to hit. Well, I mean, it is winter. It's early winter. So we might as well at least wait until spring. Right? If we are going to fight this temperature battle, we might as well kind of have the world on our side. So we'll probably start, I don't know, early spring, mid-spring, and then, shift it up. Also, if we can get at least one turn where we catch them off guard, because the spells, I think, more or less cancel each other out. So, if we cast it right as they're already trying to lower the temperature all the way down, just don't think it's do that much. Whereas if we let them get the temperature all the way down, don't resist it, they're not going to keep casting the spell of gems. So we can hopefully get one set of casts in before they realize, okay, we do need a counter. So we're going to avoid their forts, Asphodel's forts for now. I mean, other than the Murdering Winter that we're already going to eat, and then trying to provide something that's threatening, but not so threatening that it's worth wasting Murdering Winter on. So, I mean, we're still going to attack their forts, but not with our main army until we can get the temperature to a place that we're not going to lose it, which will probably, be in a few turns, right? We're probably going to have to wait for summer. So we've got that fellow who's moving to the north. We also have a fellow on top of this throne, one of our own mages, actually. Yeah, so he has the fire air cross path. So we'll probably shift him over in the coming turns as well to make sure that he's in to cast that spell when we need him to. We're not doing too much in the way of troop recruitment, right? A little bit in the most active areas. Yeah, we're a little bit worried about Bandar Log, both from Asphodel and then maybe also from Yis. But yeah, we're not even recruiting troops in kind of some critical areas. So less troop recruitment. I think we more or less have full mage recruitment. I lied. So yeah, definitely cutting quite a bit of mage recruitment, which is somewhat questionable because we definitely are going to need mages. we're moving a lot of mages out, and we're going to be taking quite a few casualties here. I suspect we've already this against Shiniyama. We lost how many witch hunters? Oh, okay. Actually, we only lost one witch hunter here, but still, we're gonna start seeing more losses like that. So it always hurts to cut mage recruitment. But a lot of that money this turn is going into temples. So yeah, we're building a temple here, and I think we're planning on building a temple here eventually. But basically, we want to start building temples on a lot of our borders, particularly with Ariu. Because we want to keep their dominion out, and then also near Asphodel we'll want to get more temples up, and just in general we'll want more temples, both for the production of our flagellants and to push our dominion out, because in the case of Asphodel it's going to help counter their cold dominion, the spells they've been casting to make things cold, since we have full heat dominion. And in the case of Ariu, of course, they have dark skies up, so the more that we can push our dominion in their direction, the easier things are going to be for us. So that's where at least some of our money is going this turn. And then our Pretender is bringing in Troll King just for an Earthcaster up here. I think that will be useful for this army. In terms of the trolls ending up here, it's not going to be ideal, but it's fine. We can use them break down the walls of Xibalba. And then once we actually get the research for it, I know earlier I'd said, we're not really interested in much for blood other than vampires. But wherever it is, the spell that lets us get the fort, which might actually also be at 7. Nope, never mind, it's at 8. So 3 red seconds for 120 blood slaves will get you a citadel, and we are trying to get forts up in a lot of our provinces, so I was thinking it'd be pretty useful for us, but I'm not sure if we'll go all the way to blood 8 for it. Our blood income is still pretty pretty light. We are planning on increasing that. I think we are forging a dowsing rod. We're probably going to start blood hunting in this province. You know, it's okay as far as blood hunting targets go. It's going to be nice because it's somewhat protected, but it's also just kind of close to where we're recruiting our blood mages from, so it's going to get, you know, blood hunters up there. But our blood income is never going to be massive, so we're not going to be able to put up a ton of forts with it. We'll see, like, you know, is that really a good use of our limited blood slaves? But it is definitely another possible use for them outside of vampires. Research, of course, is focused on vampires. And then otherwise, I don't know, we'll see. There certainly are other useful things out there, but we kind of have most of what we need at this point. In terms of the wider world, I don't think too much has changed. Yeah, we're keeping an eye on the situation here with Man and Asphodel and all their various wars. It does look like Vanheim has managed to lock this fort down. But yeah, I don't think... Okay, this fort is cracked. Man has moved back on top of it with their force, so we are moving a fellow in to see that. But this cracked fort was not stormed, so, you know, it doesn't look either... You know, Man felt like they didn't have the forces to go in. I think the last time we saw it, there was just Solus on top. I do believe that's where the really... I guess painful battle was, where Man and Asphodel lost a lot of forces, so I don't think there's a lot inside, but Man just might be worried about Asphodel like sneaking reinforcements in, which is absolutely something they can do. And then Ulm just has this lockdown with, like, some birds, which probably won't stay locked down for long. They have another fort locked down here, but also not cracked, so probably also raiders. It does seem like the raiding is shifting in Ulm's favor. So that's, you know, more or less good news for us. But in terms of like large army fights, we'll see, right? There is an army here moving in, I'm assuming, towards Satis. But, you know, I know there's been at least one of Ulm's army that's been knocked out by Foul Vapors. And if I recall, I don't think there's any... Yeah, there's no Foul Vapors defense on this army. There's really not a lot in the way of mage support either. It's pretty much just 100 black plate infantries. I'm pretty sure Asphodel's going to be able to turn that around without too much difficulty. So this war, you know, is still raging, still very much up in the air. Obviously, Asphodel is hugely the underdog, both from a nation standpoint and the fact that they're getting attacked by a bunch of people simultaneously. Although we're not going to be able to provide as much pressure as initially planned, you know, partially due to the cold scales, partially due to us having a lot of other enemies that we weren't planning on having. And yeah, I think that more or less covers turn 69.